Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream.
Bum 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 bum.
Make him the cutest that I've ever seen.
Bum 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 bum.
Give him two lips like roses and clover.
Bum bum bum.
Then tell him that his lonesome nights are over. Sandman.
Sam, we've both played Fallout 76. Me a little more than you. That you only played like what the beta from I think sometime last week. It was about a 4-hour beta.
Yeah, that's what having a full-time job does to you and living in a different time zone.
Yeah, it doesn't help you were in New Zealand when this beta was going on, so at most you play maybe in the morning.
Yeah, it was mostly in the morning. I think the one I played was on a Sunday morning, and it finished early Sunday afternoon.
I've put in about 20 hours of the game now. I'm level 21 at the moment, and I am so very mixed on it.
You certainly put a shame to my, to what, 4 hours and 7 levels.
Yeah. But you got the gist of it. You played
Yeah.
like that opening stuff, so... The whole premise and like the initial concept of a Fallout game being set that early in the Fallout timeline, that's still really interesting. It has loads of potential, but I'm still so conflicted on the idea of it being a multiplayer thing. I just can't help but feel like if this was basically just Fallout 4.5 with the option of co-op, kind of like Borderlands, with some new mechanics like the diseases have and all that stuff they have in the game, new factions, all that kind of stuff, I don't think people would be hating this like they are. I think people would be flocking to this game.
Yeah, the diseases thing was interesting, especially given that just about everything you pick up and can eat in the game will either give you rads or diseases, or a chance to get a disease.
There are also diseased enemies that will come at you and attack you, and if they manage to get a few hits on you, then you can contract a disease. Diseases aren't super harmful. At most, you'll lose like a few stats for a couple of minutes, anywhere from like 20 to an hour. But like the survival aspects of it are super interesting. I just don't know if it could carry the whole thing though. And as much as I appreciate the aspect that like you can only kill somebody if they shoot back at you. So if you start shooting at somebody and they shoot back at you, you can initiate that PvP kind of thing. And in my 20 hours during the beta, not a single time did somebody try that. So I feel like people that are big fans of games like Rust and DayZ and stuff like that, who might maybe want that from this, aren't getting it. And I feel like fans of Fallout, they don't want a survival game altogether. But once again, I keep coming back to that question of like, why couldn't this just be like a standard Fallout experience with maybe a co-op feature? Like if this was just Fallout 4.5, like a new Fallout game, using the same engine as Fallout 4, and still had that similar standard sort of heavy narrative focus with human NPCs, which by the way, this game doesn't have that at all, and it just was sort of a Borderlands kind of thing. Like I feel like co-op would be a huge feature to have in a Fallout game that I think people would love.
And you see, the thing I don't understand is why they thought no human NPCs is a viable thing, because obviously you've got games like Borderlands where people do play multiplayer and you just can't shoot or kill essential targets. And hell, Bethesda have done it themselves with their earlier MMO, Elder Scrolls Online. I don't know why they couldn't do the same thing with Fallout. One thing I did like about the game though is, as you're well aware, I'm terrible at first-person shooters. Give me an RPG and I'm right at home. And I found that the real-time VATS system in the game has been really good for people who are poor at shooting, like me.
On that note, a lot of the aspects of Fallout 3 through 4, and that whole experience of exploring an open world and such, are still here, including random events. I discovered this random event where these random robots were kind of attempting to communicate, and they kept trying to like each talk to each other with their own sort of commands, and it wouldn't work. And then eventually I just shot them both.
There was this house that I came across in my game. I opened it up and a feral ghoul had attacked me, and I shot the ghoul, I killed it, I went into the house and the game booted me out, and I got back into the game. I respawned outside that house, opened up expecting to find the feral ghoul there, it wasn't there, wandered in, and lo and behold I get attacked by a super mutant from behind.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I don't know. The enemy placement seems kind of all over the place. There are some areas where there are just dozens and dozens of super mutants. To a point where, like, if you are playing this by yourself, there will be a challenge there. There are moments where I was playing this by myself and I went into an area and there were like 20 to 30 super mutants.
Did you go into Grafton as well?
Yeah, I went to Grafton. It was just packed with super mutants. So,
and the level scaling I thought was pretty interesting because I thought it was some sort of cool mega achievement killing the Grafton monster, which was level 30 while I was level 6. But it turns out that a lot of these high level monsters you can actually just take out fairly well as long as you coordinate with other players, or in my case, because I was playing by myself at the time, I let the super mutants on the roof of a school shoot at the Grafton monster until it was low enough, and then I sort of ran in and finished the job.
Yeah, the level scaling is kind of weird. Higher level enemies aren't as scary as you think, and the weapons as well are sort of weirdly, like, scaled in a way. Like, I mostly have, like, level 5 to 10 weapons, but, like, I'm still using them at level 21, so it's weird how that all kind of works out. But, like, if you think about it, weapons weren't really ever leveled or scaled in a weird way in the other Fallout games. Like, when you found a good weapon, it was more or less going to be a solid weapon throughout. And the game sort of leveled up with your perks and stats, and I feel like they have a weird balance, like a weird mixture of that, plus some minor weapon scaling. So you did find, like, level 5 to 10 weapons, and as long as the damage output is still really good on them, you can still use them for a good long while, so...
Yeah, well, there was a hunting rifle I picked up fairly early in the game, which I ended up keeping right until my beta time ended. And that was my go-to to take care of a lot of my enemies.
Yeah, the weapon modification stuff is still there as well. You can go to a workbench and modify weapons and whatnot, and throw scopes on and stuff like that, and that's been interesting. That's been really neat to still do. But I think the most, and I hate to say this, the most miserable aspect of this game, at least for me anyways, was playing the main quest line. Like, the exploration aspects are still pretty fun. Like, if you were just playing this by yourself and you're going out and exploring and doing side stuff and just kind of doing your own thing, I think you'll still have a fun time with this. But if you were like me initially and you decided to do just the main quest line for a bit, it was miserable. It was just... It starts off cool enough with this concept of learning about survival and joining this pseudo-faction called the First Responders. And then it veers off hard. It takes a left turn into insanity when you meet this robot called Rose. And I would wager Rose is probably the most annoying Fallout character since the Annoying Man. She's basically a robot that thinks she's a raider. She somehow gets high off chemicals as well, despite being a robot. And she sends you on all these, like, wacky quests. Quests like, go pet this Deathclaw, make friends with it. The other thing is, too, like, not to completely be so down on this game, but, like, that quest line goes on for hours and hours on end. And that's a common trend I found with a lot of the main quests in this game. Every quest can be summed up as finding a dead body, finding a computer terminal, reading it, listening to it, finding another one, same thing, repeat. As we mentioned earlier, there's no human NPCs in this game, so you're constantly just going from terminal to dead body to holotape to terminal and back.
And I think a lot of the stuff that you sort of go out and explore and all of the side stuff you do, that's all padding to sort of make that experience even longer and more supposedly more enjoyable. And I'm sort of glad that I just went off and did my own thing instead of following the main storyline, because I clearly had more fun going off and doing my own thing than following the storyline and seeing where the Vault Overseer went.
No, yeah, like when I initially played the first 3 or so betas, that's all I did. I did nothing but main quest line, and it was a miserable experience. I don't recommend that. If you plan on playing Fallout 76 at launch, absolutely take your sweet time with it. If you just go off and do the main quest line, you will not have a fun time. On that note, though, if I have any other, like, minor complaints, I would say, for whatever reason, your camp storage, like, you can basically build bases and whatnot, and you can set up a base, and there's, like, a little stash you can have. And I figured, like, the stash would have an unlimited amount of space. Like, it would make sense to set up your base and build this big, massive base that you could store all your stuff at. But it has a weight limit, which is really weird, and I don't get it. Why would you include a weight limit? It kills that pack rat mentality that I've had with so many Fallout games. Like in Fallout 4, for example, when I first built my settlement, I went out of my way to collect every different type of power armor and display it. I don't know how you would do this with a weight limit in your stash. So I really hope they remove that in the final game.
Yeah, because, you know, putting a weight limit putting no weight limit on camp would be a sensible thing to do. The inventory management would be jarring and it would be annoying.
It's really annoying having to, like, constantly go back to my camp with a bunch of stuff and then be like, oh right, there's a weight limit on this camp as well. And trying then to find vendors in the world when there are barely any, it's kind of a pain in the ass. I have found myself dropping stuff constantly.
On the plus side, with the way Bethesda, with the way that the PvP was handled in this game, you don't have to worry so much about getting killed while you're going through your inventory.
Yeah, like despite my comments what I made earlier about the PvP stuff, I do still think the move they made in terms of how you can engage PvP, where you can only engage with somebody if they shoot back at you, was still a smart choice.
Yeah.
For that exact reason.
Whoa! Hey, hold on! I think you'd actually do it! We're talking about a death flyer for crying out loud. Well, you're there now. Either kill it or don't.
Did you play the Fallout 76 beta? If so, what did you think? But for all your post-apocalyptic video game news, reviews, original features, and more, be sure to head on over to Destructoid.com.